Hello, my name is Robbie Strachan from Mill of Strachan in Aberdeenshire, Scotland.
And I'm Jim Strachan, pronounced correctly. And I'm from Southern California, up in the mountains here, actually. We're going to be having a conversation, and it's very similar to several of the conversations Rob and I have had, over the decades, over a glass of whiskey, and trying to answer a lot of the questions that were presented at the gathering last year, some new questions that we got this year as well. And so, there's some questions that were sent in, and we're going to try and answer those as well. We're going to try and tie this all into how we are, the singular opportunity we have right now as a clan to acquire the Feughside guest house. So I guess I'll go. But there was a civil war by the Scots against the English, against English occupation in Scotland. And this started in around, I think it was 1296, led by William Wallace and Andrew Moray. And 1302, and this is kind of a lot of the confusion. Robert the Bruce had a reputation, still does to this day, as being this great patriot. And if you're a student of history, you quickly come to the realization that I think Bruce was more of an opportunist than a patriot. The Scots were in open rebellion against the English since 1296, and in 1302, he actually defected from the Scottish side and joined the English, because the English were at that time looked like they were going to win the war. And then it was 2 years later in 1304 that the Scots, led by Red Comyn at this time, and William Wallace, kind of surrendered to the English.
As I've said to you before, Jim, I was a supporter of Bruce. I always used to support him, and but his lands were in Annandale, which is on the borders of England. So he would have had the wrath of the English sooner than most, and would have had to have made alliances with them in order to save his family and their lands down there. However, I've changed my opinion a bit as the years have gone by. The murder of the other rightful heir to the throne in a church by Robert the Bruce does leave a bit of a stain on his reputation, and I think then afterwards his sort of no mercy kind of policy throughout Scotland, bringing clans to heel in the way that he did, I think that was pretty rough justice, really.
Yeah, I think at that point too, what you're talking about is the Bruce's murder of Red Comyn. Yes. At the high altar at Greyfriars Abbey. Yes. And the Comyn family were basically two main houses. There was Red Comyn, and then there was the Earl of Buchan, John Comyn at the time. There's some considerable charter evidence that suggests with immediate to high probability that the Strachan's family, or the Strachan family, were related to the Earls of Buchan, or to John Comyn, Earl of Buchan, through his mother Elizabeth de Quincy. And so it's not too surprising that they supported the Balliol and Comyn cause during the war, and strongly opposed Robert the Bruce.
In a way, I would say that the Comyns had more overall Scottish Earl support for their cause than Robert the Bruce did.
Yeah. Robert the Bruce, after the murder of Red Comyn, fled to Glasgow, fled to the Bishop of Glasgow. And after promising to obey the church, the bishop launched Bruce's career. Almost immediately after that, he was crowned king, and Bruce had such a, just call it a tenuous claim on the crown. He actually had to be crowned twice. The second crowning was by the Earl of Fife's daughter, who was ironically was the wife of John Cummin, Earl of Buchan. So she essentially betrayed her own husband to crown Bruce. And the reason why she was involved was because there was a tradition of the individual who would crown the King of Scotland was the Earl of Fife. But at this point in time, he was actually imprisoned by the English and obviously incapable of crowning the Robert the Bruce. So, and then the first battle after that was at Methven, and he faced forces loyal to John Cummin, Earl of Buchan, who was also allied with the English at the time, and was absolutely routed. Only 500 members of his army escaped death or capture, and they basically fled west and into the Highlands and met Red Cummin's cousin, the MacDougall clan, who pretty much wiped out the rest of them, and only 40 or so of Bruce's men survived the second battle against Clan MacDougall, and it was those 40 men that basically ran off into the Highlands and went into hiding for the fall and winter months. And then what you were talking about earlier, you know, in the spring they had 2 landings in Ayrshire, and his brother was captured and killed, but Bruce's army was victorious. And after that, his strategy, a lot of people refer to it as guerrilla warfare. So he would, in the past, he would try and attack castles and retain them. And his strategies completely changed. Instead of trying to retain these castles, he would burn them to the ground. He would fill in or poison the wells and make them completely uninhabitable.
Yeah,
and,
but I think there's good evidence to say that he was really quite ruthless. I think one of the things we were talking about a few days ago was the Battle of Roslin, and how Comyn was responsible for defeating an English army of approximately 30,000. There's varying reports of this battle, and it's a little known battle. And as we know, history is often written by the winners. But in this battle, the Scots had 8,000. This is on one report anyway. The English had 30,000, but they were in 3 separate encampments. And the Scots were well led, and they ambushed each one of the encampments and routed the English. Comyn has proved himself as a great leader too, and of course we'll never know whether he would have made a great king or not. But I mean, our point in discussing this is because we believe the Strachans and Strachans were allied to Comyn, and it's quite possible at this Battle of Roslin there may well have been a Strachan or a Strahan routing the English. We're really digging up our history in the last few years, which we haven't done before to the extent that we are trying to do now.
Yeah, and your dad played an important part of that too. I think he was the first one to kind of write a book on Clan Strachan. God rest his soul. One of my favorite men. I miss your father dearly. As we know, Bruce's tactics were successful. Pretty much took control of the lowlands. The Red Cummin also held lands. I believe it was in Galloway, and I could be wrong. One of Bruce's tactics, and you were talking about him being brutal. So when he would take a castle or a timber fortification, he would slaughter everybody garrisoning the fort, including those who had surrendered. In addition to that, if you look up on Google and just look under the harrying of Buchan, and I'm not exactly sure what the terms are, but he basically went into lands owned by the Cummins or controlled by the Cummins, and just didn't destroy castles, but burned all of the tenant farmers out, slaughtered all the livestock, lit their fields on fire, and basically destroyed any allegiance that the local community had to the Cummin family.
Yeah.
And again, his tactics after securing the lowlands, he went up the western highlands, again consolidated all of his power. And by the time he got into the Battle of Inverie in 1308, where he actually faced,
which was close to Strahan, the village of Strahan now, and of course we have Castle Hill here, which is really a site for Strahans and Strachans to visit, because you've looked into the archaeological remains, haven't you, Jim?
Well, there was a gentleman by the name of Peter Yeoman. He did an archaeological, actually two archaeological excavations at the Castle Hill of Strahan. And we've been able to confirm that the person responsible for its construction was Waltief de Strahan. It was built through a charter to the Priory of St. Andrews in Fife. So they agreed to build a hall, and they also agreed to build a church called the Church of the Blessed Mary, which is it's where the graveyard is today. The old graveyard is where the church used to be. We know that it was constructed by the Strahans. We know that it was destroyed in a fire. And we know through charters and grants that the Strahans and the Strachans were very closely allied to John Cummin, Earl of Buchan. And so there's an extremely high probability and almost a certainty that that after the battle of Inverie, where he defeated John Cummin, Earl of Buchan, and he actually went to sea and basically fled into England. He went to Aboyne Castle, and that was garrisoned at the time by the English, and destroyed Aboyne Castle. And then on his way to Aberdeen, passed through Strachan or Strahan, and destroyed Castle Hill. And my personal opinion, and we were talking about this the other day, my personal opinion is that Bruce's forces didn't didn't destroy the timber fortification at Castle Hill. I believe that as cousins of John Cummin, Earl of Buchan, he didn't want to make the same mistake when he and his men were ambushed and attacked by Dougal clan after Methven. I believe that not only did he kill everybody at the garrison, but I also believe that he went through Strahan and destroyed all the fields and all the homes. And the reason I believe that is, if I put myself in Bruce's shoes, and if our assumptions are correct, I would have done the same thing, which is destroyed any loyalty that Cummin had in the area among his cousins and extended family. Now, I have absolutely no proof. I have absolutely no proof of this, but it's just
we know he was ruthless. I think we've pretty much established that. I mean, he went to the hard school of battle, really. I mean, because I mean he was almost like as a renegade. I mean, he was being chased across. He was in hiding. He was having to fight for his life. I mean, he was really trained pretty hard by the harsh realities of life.
Let's talk a little bit about, and kind of fast forward a couple of years. You had Robert the Bruce came through, wiped out Castle Hill. I believe pretty much wiped out the entire village and the population, and that was in 1308. By 1314, he had consolidated all of Scotland, and faced the English at Bannockburn. And Bannockburn's interesting because it's one of the few medieval battles that actually lasted 2 days. There's a gentleman by the name of Alexander Seton that was on the fighting for the English. And this is the same Alexander Seton that a John Strachan had done a charter of donation in 1309, a year after Castle Hill and Strahan was wiped out. And it appears as though the Strachan family at this point, after Castle Hill, after John Cummin had fled, that they were closely allied to Alexander Seton. Alexander Seton and likely the Strachans fought for the English on the first day of Bannockburn. And we know that Alexander Seton defected from the English and went to make Robert the Bruce after that night, after the first day of battle, that Alexander Seton was urging Bruce to continue his attack because of the low English morale. So I believe that the Strachan family fought for the English, were close supporters of Alexander Seton, and that they followed him that night and fought for the Scots the following day. And the reason for this is, if they had continued to fight for the English, they would have gone into hiding and been forced to flee into England, like the other John Cummin supporters. And instead, what you find is, after the Battle of Bannockburn, the Strachan family was still around. You had John, Duncan, and Adam likely residing at Mondabo at this time. Witness a
If that was the case, though, Jim,
uh-huh.
That would have given Bruce a reason to spare Strachans and Strahans if he felt they'd come to.
There's more to the story, my friend.
Okay.
So there's a charter that the family gave to some lands in Mers in 1315, which is the year after Bannockburn. And we found a seal of a John Strachan from 1328-ish, which we believe he likely entered, the John Strachan there likely entered the life of a cleric, probably to protect himself from Robert the Bruce and his men at this early time. But shortly after the Battle of Bannockburn, there's what's called Bruce's Statute of Disinheritance. What he basically said is, anybody who fought for Cummin or the English needs to come and pay fealty to me, swear their allegiance to me. And if they didn't by this time, they shall be disinherited. At this time, you have to keep in mind, you didn't, maybe the Bruce won Bannockburn, but the English had a much more powerful army down south, and there was probably some question, and you didn't necessarily want to pledge fealty to Bruce when you're thinking that Cummin and the English are going to come by next year and retake Scotland from the Bruce and defeat the Bruce. So I believe that the Strachans did not make a pledge of fealty to Robert the Bruce. One of the first families he ever disinherited were the Strachans. So November 1, 1315, Bruce disinherits the barony of Strachan and grants it to Alexander Fraser.
But we have no actual Strachan or Strahan, do we, yet, at that time, which would have been a figurehead for the clan?
No. Ranulph appears to have gone to Ireland with Alexander Seton on Edward de Bruce's, who is Robert the Bruce's little brother, on Edward de Bruce's invasion of Ireland. And if you know anything about history, Edward de Bruce, within a few years, has failed in his invasion of Ireland. And it appears there's no other mention of Ranulph or any of his progeny or heirs. And so myself and a couple of other clan historians believe that most likely Ranulph joined Alexander Seton in Edward de Bruce's invasion of Ireland and died. You do hear of shortly thereafter, again, 1325, Alexander Strachan, son of John Strachan. My personal belief is he named his son Alexander after Alexander Seton. It then is granted lands in Carmarthen and Angus. The family, according to several historical books, did not become extinct in the male line. Bruce had a history of disinheriting lands that were held by families loyal to Cummin and then granting the lands to his loyal supporters. So in this particular case, he grants the barony of Strachan to Alexander Fraser. Who is Alexander Fraser? Well, a couple months later, Alexander Fraser would be appointed by King Robert the Bruce as Chamberlain of Scotland. And Robert the Bruce and Alexander Fraser, again, a few months later, after gaining the barony of Strachan, was married to Mary de Bruce, Robert de Bruce's sister. So it's quite literally a textbook example. What happened to the barony of Strachan is a textbook example of Robert de Bruce disinheriting one of Cummin's loyal supporters and granting it to one of his loyal people to cement further loyalty to him as well. Again, if you're a student of history, there's absolutely no doubt the Strachans were disinherited. We know that the Strachans, by at least 3 to 4 charters, had a very close tie to the Earl of Buchan, and particularly John Cummin's mother, Elizabeth de Quincy. 705 years later, we're sitting here talking about it, and the clan hasn't held lands in Strachan since.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, and I'm so glad that we're so close now to actually having something tangible for the clan after all these years of being disinherited. And this would be a way that they really would have a focus. Then add on fantastic views, add on riverfront, salmon river frontage, add on nine ensuite bedrooms and a lovely big living area with picture windows all round.
Yeah, I remember the year was 2004 or 2005. Dennis and I came over to your house for dinner.
I think I know where this is going, Jim.
And let's just say that, what was it, the Danish alcohol, the Danish drink, your mom?
Aquavit.
Was it Aquavit?
Yes.
And I live in wine country in Southern California, so I had like 3 or 4 or 5 bottles of wine. Yeah. And we were all kilted up. And it's about midnight at this point, and it's one of the few days in Scotland. It's probably the only day in Scotland that year there were no clouds in the sky. 1 billion stars. And we were all 3 sheets to the wind. We couldn't even get in the car and drive the 1/4 mile back to the inn or whatever it happens to be. We ended up walking through your fields, and you were sitting there banging away on the bagpipes.
That's
and
right.
You know, I remember, I think it was either you or your brother Jamie says, you know, the Strachans could take over the world tonight. and you know, we really are kind of in a singular opportunity, I think, to start doing that again. You know, start acquiring lands. You know, the thing I like about the Feughside Inn is it has the potential to generate some revenue for the clan as well, where we're not just solely reliant on donations.
Yeah. Yes.
And with that additional revenue, I think that we have an opportunity to. I think it was Martin Strachan from Australia. God bless him. I think it was he established the goal a few years back when he said that it should be the clan's objective to take over all the land in Strachan. Now, I don't think that's going to happen in our lifetime. But, you know, a little piece of home, I think would mean a lot. to not just my family. And I'll tell you why I'm so involved, Rob, is I've got grandkids, and I would like my grandkids to my grandchild Evangeline to appreciate the same sort of cultural heritage that I grew up in, that my wife grew up in. She was born in Glasgow. I think it's important that we were able to have the younger generations identify with who we are, where we're from, what kind of people we were, that type of thing.
Well, I have, other reasons as well why I think it's important for us to be here. I mean, as you know, we had the threat of 26 massive turbines to be erected around Clan just a year and a half ago. And if it wasn't for all the people who wrote in to the government expressing their displeasure at this idea, and many Strachans, and Jim, you were so good at managing to get all your family's objections in and get other people to sign them and send them in too. And I thought you made a very good point about it being an international, of international significance, those hills. And what I think is that really Strachans and Strachans, without a tangible presence in this area, are really disregarded, and the land could be used and abused, and unless we, so it's more of a sort of conservation aspect that I see Strachans and Strachans being able to do here, as well as being important in the community as well, the local community, and hopefully we can do some good deeds in the community as well.
You've got the local community and people who live there, who are raising their families, raising their kids. And I don't want to necessarily call us an outside organization, coming in and, buying up all the, really, our organization, the Trust in Society, has the same goals and objectives of the local community. I don't want to see big buildings going up. I don't want to see, I want to see, one of the things that attracted me and why I fell in love with Strachan so much is that it is unspoiled. There aren't these big office buildings and these buildings wrecking, the residents' views to Clochnaben or to the Feuch or to wherever they may have. I think we want to preserve the land to make sure that it remains unspoiled and beautiful and pristine.
Yeah.
I read the Feughside West Community Action Plan, the CAP, and this was part of the preparation before we even started taking a look at, I really think, the Feughside Inn.
This was a study which was done here locally to find out what the community needed in this area.
There's been so many services that have been lost in the village over the years. There used to be a market, there used to be a post office, there used to be the pub, the inn, and all that seems to have gone. And I would like to bring some services back to the community. It would be great to open a pub back up, or a cafe or a restaurant or something where people can buy locally produced groceries from the local farms, to where they can buy some nice wines or coffees or enjoy a nice micro beer with their friends in the evening. I think it's important that this isn't just I don't want to say this isn't just a Clan Strachan, endeavor. To me, it's, and I think you feel the same way too, Rob. I think it's important that we bring some services, bring some pride back to the community, and how awesome it would be to put up a big screen and do an outdoor movie at the Feughside Inn and just let all the residents come for free.
I love the idea that Clan Strachan Strachan are doing good deeds in the area. You know, doing things that people say, "Oh, that's great." You know, I love that. Oh, Clan Strachan are doing this. Clan Strachan are doing that. Oh, that's a real benefit to us all. And you know, sort of building up our name in a really nice way, in a kind of low key way, perhaps, but in a nice way that means something to people in this community.
Yeah.
And I think there's no reason why we couldn't do that, and it wouldn't necessarily be hugely expensive things to do, but it
would be nice to just do some family. I mean, if you take a look at the demographics of the area, it tends to be affluent, it tends to be family oriented, and I think it would be awesome to do a murder mystery night once every 3 or 6 months. I mean, I would fly. I would fly to Strachan to do that. That just sounds like so much fun. I do have a couple of questions for you if you're ready for them.
Yep, go for it.
Okay. So these are questions that were posted on Twitter, Facebook, where else? Instagram. So the first one is from a Stephen Strain in Junction City, Oregon. And it says, when purchased, will you maintain this as an inn?
I think this is a discussion that everyone in the clan needs to have, because this is a discussion, hopefully, that we now can have in a few weeks if the purchase all goes through okay. Then we can have this discussion about, you know, what should the place be, and it could well be a bar or a pub, and a restaurant, and there's many things it could be, but some of these things require yet more money than what we've currently raised.
Yeah. All right. Next question. This is from a Kaylee Strachan or Strachan,
Right.
from Bonnie Bankery, just down the road. God bless Kaylee. What kind of information are you putting in the inn? Have you got items? Question mark, question mark.
Well, I think that this is a great subject, because actually this is something that if the sale goes ahead, we could do it straight away, because I mean, you've mentioned the owner's accommodation. There has to be starting off. I mean, we're starting off from small beginnings, and we can start building up a kind of museum of Strachan artifacts at the Feughside Inn, almost straight away. I mean, if it's me in there, I don't know. I'm not sure if I could be handling like hundreds of thousands of parcels coming through the door, but I'm sure that won't happen like that. I think I said years ago that I would like to do a white wall, and get people to write their names and all their grandparents on the wall. And actually, so I think something like that would be a good. I think you had a great idea about virtual reality, didn't you?
Yeah. My vision for the Clan Strachan Heritage Center would be a display of all of the, and we can get wood crests. I know where to get that stuff, but I'd like to get the crests of all Strachan arms throughout the years, throughout the centuries, displayed on a wall, along with maybe a little bit about, just maybe a paragraph about who each person was. I think it's important that we try and understand some of the very unique stories. There's so much, not just unique clan history. There's so much unique and that's,
and I think
that's family history. I think it would be awesome.
Having at least we can start off with one room, and we can expand it to another room and another room if we want.
Yeah.
But it will help us with the history, because once we can start putting the history somewhere, we might actually find that we're able to expand the history so much more than we can at present when we're just talking about people's individual histories. But once you've got a place to put that history, you can then find, oh, I didn't know that, and start to make the links in a way, maybe even between us all.
Yeah.
Jim, you were talking about the virtual reality.
The virtual reality.
Hill.
So a gentleman who I met when we started kind of doing this by the name of Stu Krantz, great guy. Steve and Stu and I had come over to our house, and we were doing some dreaming about what could possibly happen. And Stu came up with this brilliant idea of doing a virtual reality of what Castle Hill would have been like back before it was destroyed. A display where the kids can come in,
yeah,
you know, the local kids, the visitors, whatever the case may be, and even us. I think it would be cool just to do it myself. So even if us old guys could go in there and do a virtual reality and kind of look and feel what it would have been like 700-800 years ago. With regards to other items, we have a seal, Strachan seal from 1328. We've got a seal from 1309. And again, we've got heraldry. We've got some genealogy. We could maybe put a database in there. That the society has already started a library. One of the what we had talked about is that the Heritage Center would also be a meeting room for when we do our clan gatherings, when we have our clan council meetings, that we would have this table with a round table. Well, it could be any kind of a table. We were talking about a
round table.
Yeah. But we could do a table and a chair for each of the armigers, the president of the society, all of the living armigers who are involved with the clan right now. Problem we have right now is that there's kind of a limited space that we're trying to put everything into.
Yes.
But again, the trust, the society, we'll kind of have a discussion, find out what's most important to the clan. Certainly we take clan input as well, but there's no shortage of material that we could put into the Heritage Center.
Yeah. So I think the answer to Kaylee is, really we'll be thinking about this almost straight away. At least having some element of having a room where we're putting things which are Clan Strachan associated. Yeah.
All right. So let's see here. Next question. This is from Michael Strachan or Strawn from New Zealand. It's probably, if he's from New Zealand, it's probably a Strawn, I'll bet you. Is there any way to get a downloadable copy of our crest, flag, etc. in high quality? I'll answer that, Rob. That's an easy one. Just email me, jim@clanstrachan.org. I'll shoot you out what I have, and if you have any questions, we can talk. The next question's from a Stephen M. Strachan. No, actually, it's Stephen Strawn. I know the gentleman. So, Rob, he wants to know, when does the bar open?
Well, that comes back to our earlier chat about the pub, no?
Yeah.
So we can't do the pub, but you can bring your own beer or wine.
BYOB?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a question from Instagram, and it's from Craig Strachan, or Strawn. Being successful in this endeavor, I'm very optimistic, in quotes. May this program morph into a standing trust program to accumulate further assets, increasing the clan society's standing. Again, I'll let you answer that, Rob.
Well, as we know, where the society and the trust are working together, and it kind of is, Jim, you're really with the society over there in the States, and I'm here with the trust, and the two together mean Strachan and Strachan. And I think as Strachan and Strachan, we can look at this as a stepping stone. I don't see why not. I think we should be ambitious for the clan.
I think that was the last question.
Right.
So, final words.
Final points. Well, we are where we are now. We're very close. We're at about 90% of getting the funds that we need to acquire the Feughside. We're at this point. We're not just having a podcast just because we're having a lazy day and doing a podcast. We're really doing a podcast because we're in the final days of fundraising for the clan to try to get the last 10% that we need to try to buy the Feughside. So I think really, if there's anyone out there who hears this who wants to donate, that would be absolutely fantastic, and try and just get us over the finishing line. That would be great. And look forward to seeing you at the Feughside sometime soon. So I think it would be great.
I would just add that literally I think we're 15,000 pounds away, 15, 18, something like that. I have to do the math. The exchange rate for US dollars is going in a bad direction for us. So we're trying to get donations in as quickly as possible. We're trying to get the funds converted as quickly as possible, and any help that, if you haven't already, first off, if you have donated, God bless you. Thank you so much for your help and support. If you haven't donated and you're thinking about it, again, please, we're almost there. We're almost there. We just need your help a little bit more to get to this final last few seconds, or last few dollars, so to speak.
Yeah.
And no, just thank you everybody for considering, and Solange.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Okay.
All
See
right.
you.
See you.